I often get asked which of my dad's movies is my favorite. People usually expect me to say Superman because it's so iconic and is what first made Christopher Reeve a household name, and because it is an excellent film. But while Superman was the biggest thing he was in and is a major reason why my dad is still a hero to millions of people, my favorite movie he ever did was a little-known nature documentary called In the Wild, Gray Whales. It was made for TV, just an hour long, easily findable now on the internet. When I was a little kid, my dad and I watched it on VHS over and over. I loved it because it had all these almost mythical elements to it. Rugged, exotic locations, 40-ton whales that would let humans touch them, and a version of my dad that I had been robbed of the chance to know. In this old documentary, in which my dad follows the migration of the Pacific gray whale from the Arctic Circle down to Mexico, you see him in full flight, piloting planes, scuba diving, chasing whales, and so on. He's a man of action and adventure, an explorer engaging with the world. But just months after he finished filming, our lives changed forever. My dad was paralyzed in a horseback riding accident in May of 1995, a few weeks before my 3rd birthday. He then died from complications from that injury 9 years later when I was 12. The world knows my dad as Superman and as the face of spinal cord injury, as a heroic figure fighting for others and for himself. Many have also learned more about him and our family in a recent award-winning theatrical documentary, Superman, the Christopher Reeve Story. But there's still more to the story, still more to the man. For decades, I've dreamed of visiting those last locations where he filmed before his accident. I've wanted to make a pilgrimage to the remote lagoon in Mexico and the tiny Alaskan island near Siberia, where my dad made tortillas with a local fishing family, sailed in a traditional walrus skin boat, reached out and touched a gray whale, and documented all of it for a project that has become for me a totemic depiction of who my father truly was as a human being. It has been my mission for years now to find a way to show the world the Christopher Reeve on display in that hour-long nature documentary, and to use the 30-year-old film as an entry point into the void I've had in me since he was injured and since he's been gone. I've wrestled with lots of questions. What parts of my dad can I carry forward into the world? What kind of man would he have wanted me to be? And did he leave clues for me to help piece that together by myself? I hoped by going to the last places he'd been before his accident, I'd be able to get closer to those answers and to the active, daring, adventurous father I had heard stories about and seen time and again in that gray whale documentary, but never fully gotten the chance to experience for myself. I thought I might learn something about him from the people in Mexico and Alaska who remember Superman dropping in on them, or even just from occupying the same physical space he had 30 years prior. My dad and I often talked about how we wanted to go to Baja and Alaska together, perhaps as part of the denial stage of grief for a version of life we subconsciously knew had died when he got hurt. And then, when my dad died, I made many silent promises to him. Closing the circle on his gray whale journey was high on my list. For years, I just wanted to do it alone, privately. But as I've grown older, I've realized my experiences of love and loss and honor and legacy and the existential questions that arise from all of that are universal. I wanted the world to remember Christopher Reeve as a hero, sure, and as a Superman, and as an advocate, activist, author, all these things that he was. But I also wanted to bring the world with me on a literal and figurative quest to find my dad at his essence. I was convinced the key to unlocking that version of Christopher Reeve for myself and for the millions of people who loved and admired him existed in those places he last visited. What I discovered by going to San Ignacio Lagoon and to St. Lawrence Island and meeting the remarkable people there and seeing the gray whales on their journey and taking a camera and an open heart with me defies comprehension. I left with a better understanding of myself and of my dad, of the natural world and of humanity. and of how they all connect through space and time. And I can't wait to share what and who I found with everyone in what is surely the story I am most proud and profoundly honored to tell in Will Reeve, Finding My Father.